I don't know, I've truly never been so confused on a review before. Hello pop fans that wouldn't normally be interested in country music, but you like Sam Hunt, welcome to the channel. Hello country fans that think pop music is ruining country music and really dislike Sam Hunt, welcome to the channel. Hello everyone else that's able to see things from both of those perspectives and just need to talk about this Sam Hunt album. Whatever the reason that you're here, I'm glad you're here, and we're going to talk about Sam Hunt's new album, Southside, today. There's a lot to talk about with this record. There's a lot of things to talk about with its genre distinction.
I saw your sister.
There's a lot to talk about with its rollout, and then there's a lot to talk about with the songs themselves here. If you're someone that already feels annoyed that I have brought up genre, well, I'm gonna ask you to consider for 2 seconds the idea that people that care about genre might actually care a lot about musical diversity and keeping this ecosystem of music fresh and interesting and diverse. And if you're someone that's totally annoyed that I'm even reviewing Sam Hunt on this channel because you don't consider him country music, just insert the same exact disclaimer I put in my Kelsey Ballerini review in this review. I'm talking about Sam Hunt because the world knows Sam Hunt as a country star and a country artist, regardless of where you would categorize him. I would say this album is definitely more of a pop and R&B album than a country album, but it's known as a country album. I'm on a country channel. It would be weird to not cover it. But no more disclaimers, let's talk about the music. Sam Hunt, you know him either as like the Drake of country music, as just kind of the hunky pop star that for some reason raps in his songs and is considered a country artist. You might know him as the super fresh hitmaker who had an album called Montevallo that was probably the most successful fusion of pop and country in the modern era. But you know Sam Hunt. You know songs like Body Like a Back Road and Take Your Time and Leave the Night On. He's had a lot of gigantic hits. And yet, it took almost 6 years for him to follow up his big debut album, Montevallo, with this new album, Southside. There were songs kind of dropped here and there. The song Drinking Too Much, which is the closer on this record, actually was released, I remember, on SoundCloud years ago. And then we had Body Like a Back Road, which was just a standalone single. Then we had Downtown's Dead, which did not really build much momentum. Recently, we have had Kinfolks, so at the end of the day, only about 6 songs are new on this Southside album. And mind you, I've covered like all those songs as they've come out. So I have something up on Hard to Forget, I have something up on Downtown's Dead. I definitely have a whole video about genre and Body Like a Back Road and whether it matters, back when I had my huge beard. This has been a long rollout to get to here. And all the while, Sam Hunt hasn't really seemed especially interested in being a star. I can't really think of another example of a new country artist that broke, had a really successful first album, and then just sort of disappeared for years and didn't really demonstrate much excitement about being part of the industry. His social media is actually quite private and curated. He's not someone that kind of checks in with his fans a lot. I get the sense he's kind of an overthinker, that fame wasn't necessarily good for him.
I guess it's just the feeling a little bit undeserving of the attention and the focus being on me just for creating some music, because the music is not really a reflection of your character or your morale, like the things that I feel like are more deserving of attention. It's just a talent. It's not really a heroic talent, but you're kind of looked at in that way, I guess. So you feel a little undeserving.
And I mean, he's been juggling a lot of life changes. He's gotten married in the last few years. He recently had a DUI charge. And I don't bring that charge up to shame him or to say he's bad, but this album sort of relies on you thinking about his personal life. He even names his now wife in the song Drinking Too Much. And so I feel like that door is open, because part of what makes this album interesting to listen to is thinking about how it relates to his personal life. Southside is, if nothing else, an interesting, messy album.
I'm sick of sitting at the house, dying on my phone.
I've listened to it 5 full times now, and it's definitely not boring to think about. There's a lot here. The sound of it is still extremely pop in the world of country music. It's got big, heavy R&B beats. The percussion is turned way up, but I do think some of the instruments are also way turned up. You know, you hear a lot of acoustic guitar, and you also hear even fiddle, sometimes laid in on songs like Nothing Lasts Forever. There's a surprising amount of steel that's brought up high in the mix, but it's hard to get past the big, loud electronic drums, which just immediately put you in the realm of pop and R&B.
They're dancing in the strobe, out here in the throes.
There are were multiple different producers involved on this project, and I think that kind of makes it feel like a little bit of a tonal mess. I think the second half of the album actually has a lot more consistent of a sound, and that sound I would say is kind of melancholy romance. I said in a little thing on Reddit, it kind of gives me fuckboy energy. Like, it just feels like the type of music that a tatted up pop star like Justin Bieber or Zayn would kind of listen to while feeling zoned out and sad about their life. There's something about the way that these songs are delivered that's a little disaffected, a little glum, and yet flirtatious in this kind of negative way that gives it that feeling to me. I feel like Sam Hunt kind of paints the world this moody shade of gray all over this record, and he paints everything that color except this girl that's the object of his affection and the object of his hope. So you get this sort of negative framing of positive relationship aspects, and he says things like, "Downtown's dead without you," which is kind of a sad way of saying like, "I want to be with you." Or he'll say, "I never felt like I was sinning with you."
Always felt like I could talk to God in the morning. I knew that
Which doesn't really feel very warm and romantic. Even on songs like Young Once, where Sam Hunt is saying that he wants to live his life to the fullest with this girl because they were young once and they only have a chance for it.
at least we know someday that we can look back and say we were young ones.
It's almost framed in this preemptive wistfulness of looking back saying, well, we were going to say that we were young once. I walked away from this thinking that Sam Hunt is a serious and kind of sad intellectual guy. And maybe it's just the fact that Sam Hunt wears high fashion and he's this like hunky country singer that looks like he'd be a player, but something about delivering things like that feels really manipulative and a little bit creepy sometimes to me. But I will say, it's also kind of interesting. This is where I hear the kind of sad Drake or even Post Malone comparisons with him. It's definitely its own style, and like I said, it's not boring. The album starts off on an awesome note, and my favorite moment, and it seems like pretty much universally everyone's favorite moment, is the opening song, 2016.
I can drive 1,000 miles in your house, walking like I walked down.
It's full of details about pool covers and putting smoke back in the joints and kind of confessions of chasing lonely women. Confessions, that's another album that this reminds me of by Usher. And it kicks off this album that is about reconciling with a love that is now far away, that is about feeling apologetic and that he's made mistakes and wants to resume a relationship. And the thing that I think makes it work is that this is the one moment on the record where I feel like Sam Hunt is truly just speaking for himself. He's not speaking for both parties in what went wrong in the relationship. It's a lot more personal about the mistakes he made, about the ways he wants to say sorry. And it's this cool, acoustic, excellent confessional song. On other songs, it feels like he is speaking for the other party sometimes. There's a lot of imagining what this other girl is doing. On Nothing Lasts Forever, she's probably sitting home alone and looking at her phone and thinking of him. On another song called That Ain't Beautiful, which is definitely going to be the most divisive song on the record here, he basically lists what seems to be some sort of influencer Instagram girl that is living a shallow existence of partying and doing Adderall and getting drunk, and he's sort of saying like, you can do better than this in life.
You can cake on all that makeup and steal your roommate's dress.
I think these are the most plain-spoken, interesting lyrics on the whole record. They're accusatory and petty. There's lots of specific details, like some guy from LSU on Instagram, like a wedding down in Turks and Caicos, like the Cabernet that's being spilled. But it definitely does come across kind of weird and accusatory on an album where he is also confessing to drinking way too much. It feels sort of self-righteous to have a whole song pointing that out. But I'm not in a threshold of coolness or hotness to really relate to songs like this. You know, this album to me feels like a great soundtrack for end of reality show montages with just hot, sad models in LA that are all breaking up with each other and smoking on their balconies. But I think the words in it are interesting. I think the words on a lot of this record are interesting. The song Young Once is going to be the other big song that people are talking about from this record.
We were young once, we were good once, singing in the sun once, back rows in the
The song about wanting to capture the naughtiness of youth in a relationship, and he wants to take advantage of the fact that, you know, they can smoke in a car right now, they can make out in a cheap motel, because over time, there's a great line where it says, time will dull the razor, but right now there's this sharpness to both of them, and they want to take advantage of that and be able to look back and say, man, we were young once. Unfortunately, though, to me, this feels like that kind of hollow, sad vibe that so much of this record has. Songs like Downtown's Dead and Kinfolks, where It almost isn't willing to feel joyful. Like, these songs are missing that sparkle of, oh, we love being with each other. Taylor Swift does this all the time. She kind of tries to paint this picture of nostalgia that she hasn't experienced yet. On a song like Wildest Dreams, she wants him to be looking back and remember the red on her cheeks. And sonically, the song goes into this really lush, beautiful place that you get these delicate vocal moments from her and a little bit more variety in the sound. Sam Hunt's is a lot more sort of straightforward, a little bit sort of angry, sad.
Girls walk by, friends say hi, but Friday night it might as well be just...
I hope that's making sense to you guys, because to me, that sort of vibe takes over this record and it keeps it from being amazing. Even moments like Let It Down don't feel as effusive as I wish they did. And that glum sort of feeling on the record makes some of that brighter, happier moments feel a little bit out of place. Especially Body Like a Back Road, which feels like such an afterthought that the label was just kind of like, well, it needs to go somewhere, so instead of being a standalone single, let's just shove it into the middle of this record. I think Hard to Forget, which is the other fun song on here, actually works a lot better, just because the lyrics are tinged with this little bit of torturedness.
You've got a cold heart and the cold heart true.
Where this girl is showing up and she's all beautiful and making him jealous, and she's playing hard to get and it makes her hard to forget. My other favorite song is one called Breaking Up Was Easy in the 90s.
I bet breaking up was easy in the 90s.
This is a modern lament about being able to follow an ex on social media and see everything they're doing and all the ways that they're moving on from you. This has spoken verses where he is seeing that this girl has gone to New York City and he sees that she's moved on with another guy.
And I wouldn't have a clue what you've been up to lately, or who you've been up to it with.
But in the choruses, you get the most effective, kind of the most poppy, memorable chorus, and it's got that clever little hook at the end of I bet breaking up was easy in the 90s that make it feel a little less somber. There's like that touch of humor to temper the sadness. I just think everything about that song works. Kinda even the spoken Drake-ish talking. The song Sinning With You is another interesting one. It's about him basically saying, look, we were having sex before we were married and it didn't feel like sin.
As long as I'm for you, who could be against us, babe?
And his argument's not very deep or theological. It just is, if it's so wrong, why did it feel so right? And he frames faith as a negative thing that was a part of his past, the case of small town repression, he calls it. And to me, I kind of think this is an answer key for the rest of the album. This song in which he has taken this woman, I presume his now wife Hannah, and she is kind of the unlocking aspect of his whole life. Every single song on here is filtered through her and through his relationship. All of his mistakes that he's made on songs like 2016, all of his resentment on songs like That Ain't Beautiful, all of his disenchantment with Nashville on songs like Downtown's Dead, all of his frustration with religion, all roads ultimately lead to her. And we don't really get a lot of other shades on this album. And that's cool to have a focus, but it's so joyless. It's a very, very joyless album. That's my biggest criticism. And yet, that's also kind of what makes it interesting to me. It really is these kind of like sad, vibey poems of this dude that just cannot get over this girl, and even when he's with her, it just seems like he wants to smoke a joint and stay in the dark and not go out in the public and just kind of have sex with her. There's nothing about his family, there's nothing about his career, there's no songs about friends on here, there's nothing really other than just this kind of one relationship and a general disaffect for the rest of the world. But the more I listened to this, the more I started to just go crazy. I was like, is this brilliant or is this a horrible mess? Because it's definitely messy. Like I said, Body Like a Back Road feels like it's in a different universe than the rest of this record. And then the back half of it gets really monotonous, and he just kind of sings in this monotone drawl, but it definitely stands out. That's what I was saying in the beginning. And I'll take something that feels different and feels new, and yeah, is substantive. The words in this record aren't bad. We're not getting a lot of just tailgate kissing and making out in the headlights. This album has a pretty unique palette of words. Everyone that's saying, oh, this is just another standard bro country thing, it's not. It's definitely not. On some level, it really works. It really feels like Sam Hunt's thing. Even the staunchest pop country haters kind of had to look at Montevallo and be like, that kind of works. To me, this album is a little less effective at doing that. It definitely feels honest. It just seems like maybe Sam Hunt is honestly sort of sad and glum, and this just kind of got thrown together because it's not the most fun album to listen to, although it is satisfying to hear something that feels honest. And you've got highlights here, like Breaking Up Was Easy in the 90s, like that first song, 2016, and Hard to Forget. Those are definitely my top 3 songs. Overall, trying to mash all of this together, I would give the album a 6 out of 10. To me, it stands out from the crowd. I do think it's on this weird thin line of being like skeezy and player-ish and also being really vulnerable and sensitive, and that kind of gives it what I called fuckboy energy, but I kind of think that is like somewhat interesting. It's definitely unique in the country landscape. It's not just pandering. Like, we hear a lot of pandering love songs, but we don't hear a lot of this kind of explicit narcissism the way this guy talks. And I find that confusingly off-putting and interesting at the same time. This is not a statement on his character or whether that makes for a toxic relationship. That's a statement on how those qualities manifest in lyrics. But just like with Kelsey Ballerini, and maybe with all albums that I would say are miscategorized as country, I will give it like the standard 3-point doc for the country purist score in me, because I have both these sides, and that would be a 3 out of 10, because I think this is much more of a pop and R&B album. I'm totally open to this album growing on me. I'm totally open to this album souring on me. It's confusing. I've gone back and forth trying to think, is this like a modern masterpiece? Or is it just messy and I'm trying to find a narrative here when there's not one? And I think that's okay. I try to keep it real on this channel, and this one threw me for a loop. But I don't think at any point did I listen to it and just be like, oh damn, this is awesome. This is just intuitively awesome. I asked on Instagram what y'all thought of the record, and wow, I got a lot of responses. Emily says, impressive songwriting, but the overproduction kills me. I'd love to hear it acoustic. Country Gal Laura says, I like it. It feels like a bridge between Montevallo and a more traditional sound. 2016 is the standout song. Kyle says, I just can't appreciate what he does. Everything sounds the same and is very boring. This one's interesting. Brett says, the songs with the most substance don't sound nice, and the songs that sound nice lack substance. That's an interesting point. A lot of love for 2016 in here. I can't even read all these, but people love 2016. Marley says, I tell everybody else it's not real country, but I won't pretend I don't go hard on it in the car. A lot of these comments are saying something like this. 6 years wait was definitely not worth it. He should have cut more new songs. Some people felt let down. Like, basically, I'm only getting an EP's worth of new material after all that wait. JWS says, his writing is so truthful, relates to guys, speaks to women. No one does pop country better. Anhead42 says, the writing was fantastic. At several points, I found myself pausing to let a line sink in. I had a similar impression. I enjoyed really trying to listen to this record. Also, this is by far the most responses I've ever gotten to one of my sort of review inquiries on Instagram. So yeah, people are all over the map. People think this album's really good. People think it's better than they expected. A lot of people want nothing to do with it. We're all over the map. And so is this review. I've shot a lot of reviews. This is the most messy I've ever been in a review. I have no idea really what it's going to be like to edit this video because it's a weird album. So let me know your thoughts. I'd love to know them. But if you like this video, if you appreciate the commentary on music, give this video a like. And I'll be back with another review of another album very soon.